All right, well, welcome everyone to this Tuesday afternoon webinar, Forming the Backbone with Weldments. So this is part 6 of 6 in our 20-minute learning series. So I'm really excited because I've done 6 of these now. We're going to try and continue on with some more cool stuff in a different type of format next month. But I am Jared Spaniel. I am one of the product managers here at Digital Dimensions and out of the Fresno office. So let's go ahead and get started this. I hope you guys are interested in learning about some weldments today. So a brief overview of what we're going to talk about here. I just want to really quickly review what a weldment is in case there's anyone out there that isn't familiar with weldments or is new to this tool and they're here to just learn some new introductory stuff. I'll go over a quick workflow of how I usually look at weldments, see if I can help you guys out with some of the workflow. We'll go over 3 modeling methods that I've identified, and hopefully one of those or 2 of them will be a new method to you guys and you can learn something here. And then got a couple brief design tips, and then we'll look at why SOLIDWORKS Weldments is so awesome, and then some of the upcoming content that we have in the next for the rest of this month. So brief overview of Weldments tool itself. This is probably a review for you guys, so I'm just going to chug through this real quick. But what weldments are is they enable design of a structure as a single multi-body part. And you can use 2D or 3D sketches to design a basic framework for your model. You can also create structural members using groups of these sketch segments. So really easy way to create good frameworks from simple sketches. It's a great tool. So I'm going to release a quick poll question to kind of get started here, get to know my audience a little bit. But what I'm asking is, what is your preferred weldment method, weldment modeling method? And what I mean by that is, do you use 2D sketches? Are you using 3D sketches? Combination of the two? Are you doing the convert to entities method, which is where you model a solid and then you can convert it with a 3D sketch? Or a mixture of all these, just depending on what you're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this. Go ahead and answer that real quick just so I can see what you guys are actually doing out there. So I'll give this a second to sit. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that out. It's like most people are just doing a mixture or a combination of 2D and 3D sketching or a mixture of all of them. So a brief workflow here. I've put together this little workflow to kind of help you guys identify the way the Weldments tool might work. But first thing you need to do is create a sketch, whether that's a 2D sketch or a 3D sketch. And then you can download or create or use the existing structural members that SOLIDWORKS comes with. So I did just want to point that out. SOLIDWORKS does provide a design library of pre-existing weldment sizes that you can easily download and utilize, or you can copy those and save them as and create your own. You can modify the original ones and create your own to create all different types of structural member sizes and types and shapes. Then you just have to assign those structural members to your sketch lines. Very simple, which I'll show you. Then you can do some trim and extend setup type stuff depending on how your members connected together and how your sketches are defined, and if you're using straight lines or curved bends. And then you can just assign some supporting geometry, and what I mean by that is things like these are the tools that don't really require any sketches. It's just enabling the tool and then selecting some options. So you can assign end caps, gussets, welds. I know I had a couple questions in my last webinar when I did a survey. People were asking about how to do gussets and how to do end caps. I'll show that real quick. It's very simple. And then you can create a cut list of all your components, take a look at that, and see all the individual sizes and shapes that you need to have cut for your structure. So another quick poll question here, just kind of keep it interactive. Go ahead and release this. But what key is used to change planes very quickly within 3D sketching? So this just kind of gives me an indication of your pre-existing knowledge of the Weldment shortcuts and what's going on. So I'll let that sit for just another second or two. In interest of time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and close that out and move on. So it looks like mostly everyone got that right. It's the tab key. Very good. So the tab key allows you to change the sketch planes in 3D sketching that you're actually sketching on. Very cool shortcut for 3D sketching that makes it a lot easier to deal with if you know that little tidbit of information utilizing the tab key. So let's look at a couple methods. The methods I've identified are 2D sketching, 3D sketching, and a convert entities method. So most people that use Weldments probably either use 2D or 3D sketch. The convert entities is a really cool shortcut method that I'm kind of going to show. So let's take a look at these real quick. Let's go ahead and jump into the 2D sketching here. So for the 2D sketching, I don't want to get too deep into this because it is a bit of a cumbersome method. But basically, all I did was create a sketch here on one of the planes. And then to establish a full, if I want to make this a 3D geometry weldment, I would have to create some actual reference planes to sketch on. So what I did was I created 2 reference planes. So I'm going to be using this very simple table for all these examples just to keep it consistent and show the different methods here. But basically, I just created a sketch on one plane, and then I know I have to create some legs, right? So I want to create 4 legs here. So I needed to make 2 more reference planes. And the way I did that was just in the Weldments tab. Turning the Weldments tab on, all you have to do is right-click on your tabs here to enact that. It's right next to sheet metal, so you can turn on and off the Weldments. And then I just inserted reference plane 1 and 2 here. And then all I did was create 2 sketches on the 2 planes, sketch on each plane here with the legs, right? Very simple, but also quite cumbersome as far as the extra features. You can see how long my tree is just to create a simple sketch here. And then I just assigned the Weldments here. So basically I just go back in here and look and see what I did. Just selected 2 groups, just used the ISO standard, square tube, and then I selected one of the shapes that were already predefined here. Selected my lines, and then you can see it turned out how I wanted. Another thing I wanted to point out while I'm in this mode here is if you want to adjust how these come together, you can either do them all as one, or you can click on the individual little purple circles here, and you can adjust how you want the butt joints to come in. So you can have an end miter, so if you want it to be mitered, or you can do 2 different types of end butts here. So you'll see if I check out of that now, I'll have 1 miter shape, 1 miter joint here, and then I'll have 3 end butts here since I didn't adjust those other 2. So you can customize the corners individually for each separate corner. I also want to show the gussets and the end caps real quick. So gussets are really simple. You can pin this down once I enact my gusset command up here from the Weldments tab. And then all I have to do is select 2 faces, and it'll automatically establish that gusset for me. I don't need to create any individual sketches or anything like that. You got some other options in here, which I'm not going to get too in depth. These are just the thickness, if you want it to be left, right, or center, how thick you want it to be, what the offset is, how you want your profile to be set up. So I can check out of that, and you'll notice I have it pinned down so it stays open. So I can just go ahead and grab some more faces, and you can see that it's establishing those gussets for me. Very easy. So I can X out of that. Same thing with end caps. If I want to do an end cap here, all I have to pretty much do is grab the end I want that to go into, and then I can do some customization here. I just have to grab the face. So you can bring it on the outside, you can bring it on the inside, and then you can just set a thickness or an offset. I like to do the corner treatment. So in this case, just add a quick little fillet in there so it cleans it up, makes it nice and clean looking. Check out of that, and you got your end cap. So very simple. You don't need to have any extra sketches or additional sketch geometry to establish those features. You just have to enact the command and then go in there and select a few things in your feature tab. Very simple. So for 2D sketching, some of the pros are, it's easy to visualize and work with 2D sketches if that's what you're familiar with, what most people are familiar with. It's really only good for very simple geometry. Some of the negatives, you need to create multiple planes, reference planes, and sketches depending on the complexity of your part. So if you have a really complex shape that has a lot of different features that are going off in different planes, I would not recommend 2D sketching just because you're going to make it a lot harder on yourself as far as the amount of planes and sketches that you're going to have to establish separately to get that geometry to look right. And then on top of that, it's also harder to control the dimensions and establish relations if you're sketching on multiple planes, opposed to controlling everything into one single sketch. So you're going to have to establish relations individually within each of those sketches to control everything, and adjusting it's just going to be a lot harder down the line. So if you have something very complex, stay away from 2D sketching, I would say. So let's look at 3D sketching. So very simple 3D sketching method to create that same geometry. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this 3D sketch that I already have in there. So all you have to do for the 3D sketch, you can get to it through Weldments 3D sketch or from sketch, and then the drop down here, also 3D sketch. And then all I have to do is select how I want to sketch. In this case, I'm just going to do a center rectangle. And what you want to be aware of here is what plane you're actually sketching in. So you'll see I have the pencil on my screen. Next to the pencil, I have the plane that I'm actually sketching in. So it's telling me I'm sketching in the XY plane. I'm going to utilize that tab key we talked about because I want to sketch in the XZ or the ZX plane here. I'm going to drop in my rectangle, right? So now I have my rectangle. You can see it's blue. I'm going to add a couple dimensions here. So maybe this is 100 millimeters. Maybe this line I want to be 75. You can see it's still blue here because I'm in a 3D sketch, and what actually I can do is rotate this because it's not fully locked down. Since I'm in a 3D sketch, it's actually telling me you need to establish some more relations, so just be aware of that if you're in 3D sketching. I actually want to click on these lines and establish what axis I want them to be along. So this one, you can see I want this one to be along Z, and I want this one to be along X. And now once I've established those two constraints, now my sketch has gone fully defined here, and it's black, as you can see, right? So now I can just add the legs. So I just want to add a line. You can do this with let's do it with a rectangle actually. So I'm going to go ahead and do it with a corner rectangle very simply. Same thing. In this case, I want to change my plane again. So I actually want to sketch in the XY plane. I just hit the tab key, and then I'm just going to drop a rectangle on here. Same thing with the other side. And you can see I left that a little bit wide. I'm actually just going to drop these back and establish a coincident mate on those 2 points there. Same thing in this one, right? You can see they're still blue, right? Same thing I just said. I'm just going to add a dimension here. Maybe I want my legs to be 50. And then I'm just going to establish a quick relation between this one and this one. Make those equal. And then this one's going to be along Y, right? Same here, along Y. Check. Okay. It's all black. And now I can just trim up. I can trim up those features. So if I just do a trim entities, I can trim up my legs there. Green check. And now you see I have my table created. Much simpler, and look at my feature tree. I have one sketch. Opposed to on the other one, I had 3 sketches and 2 planes. I have 1 sketch here. So now I can just add my weldments, say structural member, same thing. It automatically remembers the same size I already had in there. So yes, that's what I wanted. And now I can just pick my individual lines. I need to make a new group for these lines. So I'm just going to go ahead and new group and then add my legs. And then green check, and you can see my table, same exact table I had before, but now only with 2 features, 1 sketch and 1 weldment feature. So much simpler on the feature tree, much simpler to create from the beginning. So some of the pros, you're able to create very complex geometry in very few, one sketch feature potentially if you do it right. And then you can control multiple dimensions within that same sketch. So I can go in there and make a bunch of changes real quick, real easy within one single sketch. Some of the cons, it can be a little hard to work with if you're not used to working in 3D sketching mode, just due to the visualization factor difficulty with how you're visualizing all your different planes and where you're actually sketching on. It requires an awareness for what plane you're sketching on. So just be aware when you look at the mouse pointer, match up your planes that are written next to your mouse pointer with the planes with a coordinate system from the model, and just match up where you're sketching utilizing that tab key shortcut. Makes your life a lot easier. So the next one, 3D sketching made easy, I call this one. But basically what this one is the conversion one. So this is the convert entities method. So I'm actually just going to say new part. Let's create a new part here. And for this one, this is really cool because I'm just going to do a sketch just like I would normally do. I'm going to make a sketch on my top plane here. And I'm just going to do the same thing, center rectangle. I'm going to sketch out this center rectangle. Add my dimensions. So we'll just call this one 100. We'll call this one 75, just so it's defined. I'm going to green check that. And then I'm just going to make an extruded boss here. And then I think my legs were 50. So I'll extrude that 50 down. Green check there. Now you can see I just have a solid block, an extruded boss, right? Very simple, what everyone's pretty much used to working with within SOLIDWORKS. This is how you start almost every model. But now what I want to do is I want to make this a 3D sketch without actually making a 3D sketch, basically. What I mean by that is I'm going to do a 3D sketch, but I don't have to actually do anything here. I'm just going to do a convert entities, and then I'm going to select the lines that I actually want to have come through as my final 3D sketch. And then I'm just going to green check that. So you can see I have a 3D sketch here, but I still have my solid, right? So I can just hide that. And you can also delete that if you want to do a delete body. So if you go up to direct editing, you can do a delete body and actually delete that body, and it'll remove that body from your actual model. But now you can see I have the same exact thing I had before with just a simple boss extrude, and then I converted the entities that I actually want to keep into a 3D sketch. And then I just select my structural member. It automatically remembers everything. Same thing, pick my lines, right? And I'm establishing the same exact table that I had before, just in a different method here. Green check out of that, and then voila, I got the same exact table I had before. And this method's either quicker or probably about the same as 3D sketching, depending on how good you are at 3D sketching. It may not be great if you're doing really complex geometry, but if you're doing simple structural stuff like tables or a mounting bench or some kind of assembly line type thing, it'd be great for that because it's just simple block geometry that you can utilize those pre-existing edges for. So maybe try that one out. So some of the pros of that method, it's an easy method utilizing model tools everyone's pretty much familiar with. You're just going to be utilizing 2D sketching with extruded boss and base. And then it's good for making really simple shapes, right? So the cons are you're going to still need to add additional probably support or braces using other methods. So if you have extra stuff that you're adding, you're probably going to want to add some extra support bracing utilizing either 2 or 3, probably 3D sketching. So if you just go back into that 3D sketch, you can add that stuff so it's still all controlled within the same 3D sketch. And you need to maybe add an extra feature if you want to actually clear out the solid body from the feature tree. So depending on how you want your feature tree to look, or if you're concerned about that, needs to be an extra feature in there, right? Cool. So some tips I got, don't be afraid of 3D sketching. It's pretty easy. Just takes a little getting used to from the visualization standpoint. You can use the tab key for a significant advantage for changing the planes quickly. You can model solids and then convert the entities to capture a pre-made 3D sketch. So that was the convert to entities method. And then don't forget about being able to create custom profiles if needed, or you can use the ones provided in the SOLIDWORKS content. Some of the benefits of Weldments, the Weldments tool itself. It's a very simple and easy way to create any frames and structures. You can create a variety of profiles provided and the ability to create your own. The cut list generated automatically showing quantity and length of each piece. Actually forgot to show the cut list, so let me jump back into SOLIDWORKS real quick. So once you create these, you'll have an automatically generated cut list here, and if you just go into the properties, it'll show you your cut list table. So it'll show you the quantity of each piece you need to have cut, what size it is, and then the length of each piece. So it's really nice if you got tons of different size pieces. It'll give you a cut list for all that automatically. You can trim the complex joints automatically, so it's huge time savings compared to, if you were to have to model individual members and then piece those or assemble them together. That wouldn't work right. You wouldn't be able to do those, utilize that Weldments trim tool. And then you got a bunch of other extra added value, simple tools like end caps, gussets, and weld beads that you can add to your models and drawings just for more realistic and better design, better call outs for manufacturing. The big one, you're going to have a lot of cost and time savings with Weldments just because it's such a simple tool to use. It's basically just picking lines, and you can establish all those members within one assembly or one part model. So some upcoming content that we have. September webinars left. We got a simulation webinar tomorrow, it looks like, and then deliver 3D CAD to manufacturing, which is going to be a webinar on MBD. So that's going to be next Wednesday at 1. So all our webinars are pretty much at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time now. And then also don't forget the SOLIDWORKS 2017 rollout stuff is going to be coming in October, September and October, I should say, to a location near you, depending on where you're at. So I just want to thank everyone for attending and just remind you guys to, think about what did you see today that could benefit your company and how SOLIDWORKS Weldments can help with any of your upcoming projects. Also, don't forget to follow us at DDICAD on Twitter or Digital Dimensions Inc. on Facebook and LinkedIn. Once again, my name's Jared Spaniel, and my information's here on the screen. If you have any further questions, I will hang out for a few minutes and see if I can help answer those. But thanks for attending. Have a good one.